What's going on? Welcome back to Off the Schneid. We're wrapping up these team needs heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. We're going with the NFC West today. We're going to be talking about the Arizona Cardinals, obviously. So above me, you can see the draft needs there, the team needs, and then the draft capital that they have heading into the draft, which is in a little under 2 weeks. We're getting into crunch time here. My mock draft will be out by the end of the week here, probably this Saturday on the 23rd of April is when I'll have that actually released and available to watch. Looking forward to it. I'm putting in a ton of work and hopefully you guys enjoy it when that does come out. But like I said, let's take a look at this Arizona Cardinals team. Cliff Kingsbury is obviously still head coach. It's his offense and everything like that. Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator, very good defensive coordinator in my opinion, but we'll get there. Let's start at the quarterback position like we do every time. Kyler Murray's the guy here. There's a little bit of controversy happening right now with the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Obviously, he wants to get paid. That's kind of the new normal. Guys want to get paid in their third year, whatever it is, fifth year option for quarterbacks, but that just never happened. Well, not for quarterbacks, for first round drafted players. There's a fifth year option, but that just never happens, especially at the quarterback position. Most other positions, it doesn't either, depending on how much they succeed. Obviously, Kyler Murray wants to get paid with the rest of them. A bunch of other guys already got paid. It's, he feels it's obviously his turn, which, I can't really get upset with. I can't argue with it, to be honest with you. I just think that setting that precedent that early or this early is a little bit of an issue for me. Obviously, the team is focusing on free agency, the draft, things like that. You can wait till the summer to get paid, and I fully expect them to pay him. It's just going to take a little bit to get over the hump of all this other stuff that the franchise has to look after. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure he'll get paid. You don't particularly move on from a guy like that. He was a first overall selection. Everything like that. I do expect them to pay him to be a Cardinal, but there's a lot of other issues with this team, and we'll get there in a second here. Colt McCoy still the backup. He's been a career, for the most part, backup. He's got a few opportunities here and there, but he's a very, very quality backup quarterback and always has been. There might be a career for him in coaching after the fact. We'll see what happens there, but right now he's still a very good quarterback in the NFL. If given the opportunity as a backup, you're never going to turn to him, purposefully or anything like that, but he's shown that he can take over an offense, and you are going to miss a bit of a beat, but it's not going to be a huge drop off, and he can get the job done. Trace McSorley's here, but he's more of a rushing quarterback. Doesn't offer much in the passing game, and he's already been moved on from the Baltimore Ravens. Actually, sorry, it was a practice squad signing, so I guess they didn't particularly move on from him, but they didn't have him on the roster either, so it opens it up. Let's move over to the running back position. James Conner obviously had a very good year, stayed fairly healthy. His yards per carry weren't quite there, but I'm not ready to blame James Conner on that one, and we'll get there in a second as well. But 15 touchdowns, he can obviously catch the ball to the backfield. He can be that 3-down running back for you. But injuries are always a concern in the back of your mind with James Conner. He was fully healthy here, and maybe the weather is just a big issue, but he did play football at Pittsburgh in college, and then obviously in the pros, moves to a warmer weather. NFC West is not you're not seeing a lot of snow out there in any of those teams that you're playing. So maybe that was a big issue for him. I don't know, but he was fully healthy and might have missed a game or two or something like that. I think he did, but there wasn't that big of an issue like it has been in the past for him. We'll move to the backup spot. Benjamin, he's a local guy, went to Arizona State. He's done everything they need him to do, and he had a very good career, like I said, at Arizona State, where he was a 3-down back, can catch the ball, ran the ball a ton, but he hasn't got an opportunity yet in the NFL. So, I'm not going to say there's a ton of miles on him, because there's not. In college there was, and if he had continued that in the pros, but he didn't. Realistically, he's had, under 50, under 40 probably carries in his career. So I think he deserves an opportunity to earn that backup running back role. And, obviously we've seen with this team, the backup running back does have a role. So like I said, you can bring in a guy. They have a bunch of 7th round picks, 6th round picks. You could bring in a guy to compete, and maybe Jonathan Ward does as well. Jalen Samuels can catch the ball a little bit, but I probably do draft a running back at some point in the draft just to compete with Eno Benjamin to be that second and third running back on this team. Let's kick it to the tight end position. Zach Ertz is still very, very good. He showed good rapport with Kyler Murray. He showed good grasp of this offense. I think that he's going to have a very good year this year. I think he's probably, the number 2 receiving option on this team behind Nuke Hopkins, and he should be very good for this team. That pressure then comes off Max Williams, who played well, when given the opportunity for this team. He's coming off another injury, but he's not that guy. It's pretty obvious that he's not capable of handling a load like that in the passing game, and it's not really suitable for his game. And, it was a great get going out there to trade for Zach Ertz like they did last, halfway through last season, or, first, second quarter of last season type of thing. Let's move to the offensive line, and this is where I want to spend the majority of our time here on this offense. There's some issues here. There's absolutely some issues. It's an aging, group. Kelvin Benjamin has kind of, fallen off a little bit. He's still okay, though, as a right tackle, but he's 33 years old. He's definitely getting up there. Will Hernandez had his best year as a rookie, so he's got to get back to that. And I really, really liked Will Hernandez out of the where was he? Texas, El Paso or something like that, I think. I can't remember, but I liked him out of the draft, and he had his best year as a rookie, but has fallen off since. Hopefully he can figure it out again and get back to being a quality guard in the league. Rodney Hudson, another guy that's fallen off a little bit, and he is getting older. Justin Pugh, still very good. DJ Humphries, again, getting a little bit older, kind of falling off a little bit, but it's still okay. Like, it's an okay unit. It's just dwindling a little bit, and a lot of these guys are getting older, and there's not much depth coming in there, to help out. If any injury should occur. Josh Jones was a former 3rd round pick, probably should have been a 2nd round pick. Some people, I think even I had him going in the 1st round of that 2020 mock draft, fell to the 3rd. They grabbed him. They were hoping he was going to be their right tackle solution. He's not, but you're hoping he can find a home as a guard, maybe left guard, interior swing guy, something like that. You hope that he can find a role on this team. Otherwise, it's a complete bust and it's a bit of a wasted pick. But this is what they have to address in the draft here somewhere. Probably isn't going to be a 23rd overall because they're trying to keep this thing rolling to be a playoff team, win the division. For a team that was 7-0 and I think 9-2, I believe, at their bye, something like that. They were 9-2 at one point anyways. They lost a few games in a row, and then obviously, limped into the playoffs after Nuke Hopkins got hurt. I don't think that this is a team that's going to compete for the division. I really, really don't. I think it's a two-headed race, and I don't think the Cardinals are one of those heads. I really don't. But let's move to the wide receiver position. It's an interesting one here. Obviously, again, they're getting older and they might be declining. I still think that Nuke Hopkins is fantastic. I still think he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL when healthy. Hopefully he is healthy all year this year. AJ Green comes back on a 1-year deal. I think that was a great re-signing there. He can still do some good things. He's not a guy that you want to completely rely on, that's for sure, as we saw last year. But, he can definitely still do some good things in a complementary role. You really need Rondale Moore to take a step forward. There's no reason to think he shouldn't. He's a bit of a lightning in a bottle, water bug type of a guy. Should be very good as a slot receiver for this team. And then the guy that I want to see, have something good happen for him is a former 2nd round pick in Andy Isabella. They gave him, the green light to seek a trade. I don't know if they're going to be able to find a dance partner, or he or his agent are going to be able to find a dance partner for this team. But the reality is, he might just get that opportunity with the Cardinals that he's finally, deserves and has been trying to get since he was drafted in the 2nd round, out of kind of necessity. Christian Kirk led this team in receiving yards last year. He's obviously gone, and pretty much the rest of the team remains the same. Obviously Nuke Hopkins got hurt, but for the other rest of the season, well, what did Nuke Hopkins play? I think he played 10 games. Obviously wasn't healthy for all of those games, but he played 10 games, and Christian Kirk led this team in yards. So there should be some production. There should be something coming towards Andy Isabella if he's still on this team. Antoine Wesley, knows this offense. He's kind of a red zone target, go up and get it type of a guy. And he's going to chip in a little bit as well and might take a bit of a step forward. But I'm still looking at Andy Isabella, hoping that there's something there for the guy. I'd like to see him move on regardless and get himself an opportunity, but we'll see what happens. So there's your offense. There's some issues here. There's some influx. There's some, changes that need to happen. There's some depth that needs to be addressed, all that kind of stuff. This still should be a very good team. This is a weak NFC East, so maybe they do squeak into the playoffs still. I wouldn't be shocked if they're a wild card team, but I'm not picking them to win the division. I'll tell you that. Let's move to Vance Joseph's defense. I really like Vance Joseph as a leader. I'd like to see him get a head coach opportunity again. Might be with this team. We'll see what happens, after this season, but I do like Vance Joseph. Let's start on the defensive line here. JJ Watt's still there. Obviously, he's been a lot of injury concerns there. JJ Watt's one of my favorite players in the NFL. I'm a big fan of JJ Watt. I always have been, always will be, and I hope that he's healthy for 17 games this year. It's just really tough to rely on that. It really, really is. Leki Fotu, he should be fine as your run-stuffing nose tackle. Zach Allen, I think, had 6 sacks or something like that for this team last year. He's very good. I do like him, but the depth is pretty much gone from this team on the defensive line. They're absolutely going to have to address it. I do have it as a big need up here. Mostly it's depth, and that same thing with the offensive line. It's pretty much just depth, but it's still a pretty high priority need that this team is going to have to take a look at, and that might be where they go at 23rd overall. That's right in the sweet spot for guys like Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, guys like that, Perion Winfrey maybe, that they might look towards the defensive line in the first round. We'll see. Keep an eye out for my mock draft, like I said, coming out on the 23rd. We'll see what I have them doing, but that might be what I think about. Let's kick it back to the edge rushers. Obviously, Chandler Jones is off this team, and that's a huge loss. I don't need to tell Cardinals fans that, but that's a massive, massive loss. Marcus Golden's played well for this team in the past 2 seasons. He had 11 sacks and led this team last year, so he's very, very good. And you need some of these other guys to chip in. I do have edge rusher as my number 1 need, and we'll see who's there, when they pick again at 23rd. Maybe David Abajo, someone like that, but he probably won't be playing until next season. So I don't know if you're going to sink that capital in a team that needs to win right now, and they need a difference maker right now on the edge after losing Chandler Jones, like I said. Dennis Gardeck had 7 sacks 2 years ago, 0 last season. So, hopefully he can pitch in and do, get himself a few sacks, getting after the quarterback. Devon Kennard, he's just not that guy as your starter, that's for sure. Victor Dimukeje, he's a guy that I liked in the draft last year. I thought that was a good draft pick. I thought that he has all the traits that you need to be a guy, but he didn't really contribute last year at all. So he's going to have to take a step to, at the very least, be one of those rotational edge rusher guys. But I just said, I have edge rusher as my number 1 need. They're going to have to add a guy to get after the quarterback to help out Marcus Golden there. So we'll see who's there. We'll take a look at the mock draft, and to me, that's their number 1 need, and it's not even particularly close. Let's talk about the linebackers now. And when they drafted Zaven Collins, and even before they drafted him, just talking about Zaven Collins in the draft last year, I thought that he had to go to a team like this that runs a 3-4, because I think there's a very big potential that he ends up as an edge rusher at some point in his career. It's tough for a guy that big to remain as an off-ball linebacker. He's like 270, 6'3", 270, 6'4", 270. I just really, really genuinely feel like he's going to have to move to the edge at some point and be an edge rusher. And maybe that's this year. I don't know. But then you're probably going to have to address interior linebacker at some point in the draft. They do have some guys that can, take the pressure off that position, and we'll get there in a second. But Isaiah Simmons is, a good running mate. People thought he might be a safety as well, so he does take a lot of pressure off of his running mate as the interior linebacker. So I really, really like Isaiah Simmons 100%. Tanner Vallejo, Nick Vigil's there. Realistically, I think Nick Vigil in a pinch could be that starter. He played well when called upon in Minnesota last year, so he could be, if you had to, your other starting, inside linebacker for this team. But he's quite a liability in pass coverage, so it's hard to, but then they do have Isaiah Simmons. It's a little, pick your poison type of thing. That is a bit of a point of need inside linebacker, but we'll see what they do with Zaven Collins. So let's move it back to the defensive backs. We'll start with their safeties because we'll continue that conversation, to take the pressure off your linebackers. Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker are very, very good in that regard. And then even Deontay Thompson, he is that kind of hybrid safety linebacker guy that you could just, realistically, I think if they move Zaven Collins as an edge rusher, he's got to obviously improve and get those power and speed moves, spin moves, all kinds of, pass rushing moves. He's got to get that stuff figured out, but it's stuff that he can learn, and he did some of it in college. So he's got to, I think he can learn that. And then you can have these safety linebacker hybrids, because there's actually a bunch of them on this team, and then just kind of piece it together with Nick Vigil as your run stuffing and inside linebacker. I think that you could go that route and they could get by. I'm not going to say that they're going to be a top defense in the NFL, that's for sure, but I think it can get them by, while they're transitioning, and try to add that depth, get some young guys in the draft, and hopefully some guys hit for you, and then you can, switch this defense, kind of hand it over to the next generation type of a thing, if that makes sense. We'll talk about the corners now. Marco Wilson was a 4th round pick last year. Sure. Byron Murphy, I do really like. He was a 2nd round pick a few years ago. And then obviously the big kind of question mark is Jeff Gladney. He had some off-field legal issues. Obviously, I don't like to get into that stuff, as you know, but there's a possible suspension that's there for him. He was found not guilty in his case. It doesn't mean he's completely innocent. I don't know. I don't like to talk about that stuff. So we'll see what happens with his, if there is a suspension waiting for him. He's a former 1st round pick. You hope that he can be a contributor to your team, whether you like him as a person or not, or whatever it is. Not here to talk about that stuff. If you want to look into it, go look into it. But I do believe that there's probably going to be a suspension waiting for him to start the season, whether that's 4, 6, 8 games. I'm not really sure how long it's going to be, but I do fully expect there to be a suspension waiting for him, which brings up a huge need at corner. I should have had it higher, to be honest with you. But like I was saying, there's actually quite a bit of need on this team. There really is, for a team that started 7-0 and looked like it was going to run away with this division. There's actually quite a few needs on this team. So we'll see how this all shakes out. This is an important draft for the Cardinals. They do have a little bit of capital, 1st, 2nd, 3rd picks. They have to hit on those picks. 23, 55, 87. They have to hit on those picks if they want to be competitive this year. Well, they should be competitive this year, but if they want to keep that train rolling, they're going to have to hit on those picks, I believe. They got some dart throws, great. You can attack positions like, defensive line, offensive line, things like that, where it's not a screaming immediate need right now. Wide receiver, in my opinion, corner, and probably running back. And then the offensive line, there is, like I said, there's a lot more needs than you'd think. So there you go. There's the Arizona Cardinals for you. The draft needs, the capital, everything you need to know to get you ready for the draft in a couple weeks here. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video.